What's up, guys? Day 2 here at Kentucky Dragway for the Mopar Southern Classic event. So yesterday had a really good, successful day with my dad's car. We got to make 7 passes, and the last 2 passes we didn't change anything, and it consistently made nice laps down the racetrack. So we're really happy with that. We'll see if it maintains that consistency moving into today as he gets ready for time runs and eliminations today. But today my main focus now is to switch back to my truck and actually make some passes with mine today. So I'm going to start off this morning by getting it warmed up, do a spool up, make sure everything looks good for this air, these conditions, and then we'll be getting this thing ready to make a lap here real soon. So now that we've got the nitrous pressure in check, we had a nice, clean, quick spool up that I'm happy with, confident with, to go up there and make our first run. Friday, while I'm helping my dad, I'm also driving around, checking out the track. I've not been there with this truck before, and it's been 2 years since I raced JP's truck at this track, so I'm going to the shutdown, seeing where the turnoffs are, seeing in an emergency situation what my options are, just giving the track an overall check out so I am familiar with my surroundings. I'm also paying attention to the burnout box area. I'm running into more and more commonly that it's getting harder and harder to drive around the water box. As these events grow, a lot of times these tracks will have to manage crowd control on the starting line. You'll see tracks put gates up around the water boxes to where it's just big enough for the vehicles to get through. In this case, there's equipment parked on either side of the water box. It's just getting harder and harder to go to the racetrack, knowing that you're totally dependent on the track situation as to if you can drive around the water or not. So we had always done burnouts in JP's truck. It gave us a nice, consistent, clean start. There's some debate on the necessity of four-wheel drive burnouts on four-wheel drive trucks, but in my opinion, at some point, it does become important. If you look at any race car in the world, they all do burnouts. There's a reason for it. The tires want to be hot. The only way to activate the tire to get the compound to work correctly, you gotta get it hot. For me, I'm just tired of driving around the water, relying on, worrying about, hoping that the track is gonna be able to let me do that. So I had decided Friday that I am going to start working on a burnout procedure for this thing. I had only attempted 1 burnout in the truck so far, the very first pass out with it at UCC in 2021, and it did not do a burnout. I started off in 3rd gear and was just going to use the staging limiter, just hold the limiter. So basically it was like 20-ish pounds of boost and 3,100 engine RPM, and it just wasn't enough power in 3rd gear to spin the tires. So I had basically said that I don't need to do burnouts. I'm going to wait until the time comes that I have to worry about it, and I feel like now is the time. So from here on forward, every run I do will start with a burnout. So I'm going up into this first run knowing that that's how we're going to start this run off. My plan for this is to start in 2nd gear, holding the staging limiter to see if that gives it enough mechanical ratio to get the tires spinning. So that is my plan going up into this run. you've seen, second gear holding the staging limiter, still not enough horsepower to spin all 4 tires. The transfer case that I run, same transfer case that we ran in JP's truck, it's mechanically locked in 4 high all the time. So if you're going to do a burnout, you have to do a 4-wheel drive burnout. In my opinion, if you have a 4-wheel drive truck, you should be doing a 4-wheel drive burnout. Also up for debate, but that's our only option with this thing. So clearly that did the same thing as my very first burnout attempt. Basically what happened there is it didn't have enough power to spin the tire, so the converter lost that battle. Essentially, it is fluid coupling, and the transmission's not slipping, but essentially the converter is slipping. So that's why the engine RPM goes up, and the truck doesn't really spin the tire or do anything more than just kind of drive out real lazy, because it's like being in second gear, holding your foot on the brakes and holding it on the floor. So the converter does not like when you do that. So the rest of the run, I feel, was totally in the trash because of the failed burnout attempt. I go up there, I take the tree, it spools up good, I roll it in, I set the brake, and I let go of the button, and as you can see, it wraps the tire up. It acts like it wants to make a good initial move, and I feel a little bit of wheel input, and then I just feel like it laid over. It just felt to me like it was driving through the converter. I let it run to feel the 1-2 shift, and I can't really tell. The engine just doesn't sound happy. It just sounds like I'm driving right through the converter. So I lift out of the run. It goes a 155 60 foot 429 to the 330, and I was out of it at 4.2. So that run was pretty much just wad it up and throw it in the toilet. It made 34 pounds of boost on the staging limiter, which, I'm sorry, 32 pounds of boost, which doesn't make any sense because the spool up I did 45 minutes before then was 22.7, 22.8, just like it was here at the house. So in my opinion, I believe what happened there, and while I'm holding my staging limiter, essentially to limit the throttle in the burnout, the dump valve is also still dumping converter charge pressure out of the converter. So I believe that as I'm draining converter charge pressure and I'm putting load on the converter from the crankshaft, I'm putting load on the converter from the drivetrain not spinning while draining fluid pressure from it. I just think that converter is just, there's not enough fluid in it. It's gonna get hot. So when the converter gets hot, it takes longer to fill it back up. So I believe what happened there was the converter was not fully charged back up with oil, and with it already being hot, it just acted totally inefficient. When I'm spooling, I'm also on the dump valve, and the dump valve turns off with trans brake release. So the converter, had enough energy to set the tire, to wrap the tire up, and to start moving the truck. But then as engine power comes this way, load comes this way, converter loses that battle again. So efficiency goes out the window. And the transmission was hot. My definition of a hot transmission, it was 180 degrees when I got back to the pits, and I never like to run them that hot. Usually 150 to 160 is what the non-lockup setups will do. So I knew that I had really made the converter angry before that run there. So my plan from this point to moving into the next test session is to either figure out a better solution for the burnout, or I'm possibly not going to do the burnout just to make sure that I don't have any weird things going on with the converter. I checked the line pressure. Line pressure looked good. The transmission fluid level was good. Smelled great. I don't think I have any problem with the transmission per se, or hurt the converter with that. I just think that that run is a throw it up and throw it out the window type of deal. So I'm going to go up to the next one here to see if I can just recreate the run per se, and probably skip the burnout on this until I can figure out a better solution. So unfortunately, It was a wash after that first pass. Total rain out. Rain came out of nowhere. The track staff tried very hard to make the race happen. We had a lot of period of rain, followed by a small period of time to dry the track. They tried very hard to get the track dried in time. Another rain cell moved in, and they had to call it for the weekend. So we were now in a position to where we could change our focus away from, okay, let's figure out how to make a run, to let's figure out how to get this thing doing a burnout properly. I used to do four-wheel drive burnouts in JP's truck and had no problem doing those. This truck is a totally different truck. It is 5.9 versus 6.7, you know, 12 valve versus common rail. It's heavier, it makes less torque, so the burnout is just going to be a totally different procedure from one vehicle to the next. So at this point, I'm looking for a place where I can just go and test the burnout. I just want to get a good handle on what this truck is going to need to do a proper burnout. You don't need a big John Force crazy big burnout or anything crazy. I just need something repeatable that I can do easily, that is going to get the tires clean, get the tires warm, get the compound actuated in them to where I can make consistent runs. I can go to any racetrack in the world and know that I'm not going to have any problems. So luckily, our local track, Thornhill Drag Strip, run by Heather Scatz, was nice enough to let me come in on a Thursday night and use the top end of the racetrack just to work on burnout procedure. So that was really nice of them to let me do that, because it's too hard to try to go to the track on a test night and just work on burnouts. If you just go up there and do your burnout and then you back up, you're taking a lot of time that you're kind of in the way, you know, that they want to let cars run down those tracks. So the last thing I want to do is be an inconvenience to a drag strip. So it was really beneficial for us to be able to go and just be by ourselves and nobody around, nothing to be in the way or slow anybody down, and just work on our burnout procedure. So because we're doing the burnout on the top end of the racetrack, where there's, you know, the surface is really bad because it doesn't need to be good, it's just a shutdown. There's no water out there, so I'm doing burnout in glue. Essentially, the reason for that is because if you just do dry burnouts on bad old asphalt, you will totally destroy your tires. Also, I want to break the tire in. That's kind of the purpose of the burnout as well. So I'm putting glue down so I have something to spin in, which is going to break the tire in on top of allowing me to practice the burnout procedure. So on this first burnout attempt, my thought is now I'm going to try to have full throttle control. I'm going to start in third gear again, and I'm going to spool it up, you know, essentially like you would without a staging limiter. Spool it up just by my foot, and then let go of it and control the throttle on my own. So I'm foot brake spooling and then controlling the throttle on my own with just a little bit of glue down because I've not done a burnout in glue before. So I am not 100% sure how much we should or shouldn't use. So a little bit of glue, third gear, spooling up on the foot brake with full throttle control. Let's see what that does. So that netted us pretty much the exact same results that we had at Clay City. it did not spin the tire and basically just drove through the converter. That was 32 pounds of boost on the foot brake before I let go. And then it went up to about 4,500 RPMs and about 55 pounds of boost, and just not enough horsepower with not having nitrous on, with the pump cut all the way back this year. This thing is just a mutt, and it does not have enough horsepower to spin the tire starting in third. So for my next attempt, we're going to cool it down, and we are going to start in second gear and do the same procedure that we had before and put just a little bit more glue down and see what results that gets us. So that one spun the tire just a little baby barely bit. It moved the tire about one full tire rotation and then spun the tire, and as it spun up into RPM, it shifted from second into third, and there wasn't enough horsepower there. The tire wasn't spinning fast enough to maintain the wheel speed when it went into third, so essentially it just dead hooked and drove over. So that attempt, we're moving in the right direction, but this thing just needs more horsepower in the burnout. So moving into the third attempt here, and that was 32 pounds of boost, just like before when I let go of the foot brake. So on the third attempt, I go in the SmartWire and I change it to where it's not going to make the 2-3 shift. It's just going to stay in second gear. I'm going to try to leave on a little bit more boost, and we're going to put more of a puddle down, and at this point I'm probably just going to flat foot it in second and see what RPM it goes to and see what kind of wheel speed that we can get out. So that result was better. We're moving in the right direction at this point. We're nowhere near where we need to be, but it definitely liked a little bit more power off the foot brake. That was 40 pounds of boost. We took the puddle out a little bit longer, so that way it had a chance to make more revolutions of the tire before it left the puddle. And so it spun a little bit longer and got a little haze of smoke off of the tires that time. So we've only got enough time at this point to really make one more between getting the transmission cooled down, getting the truck cooled down. We've got time to make about one more before it gets too late. So on the next one, I'm going to continue the exact same procedure, but I'm going to leave on more boost on the foot brake. So I'm starting in second gear still, and I'm full throttle control, and I'm probably going to wick this thing up to about 50 pounds of boost on the foot brake before I let it go, and then go flat on the floor wide open. It definitely liked that more on this last one, being flat on the floor. It went to about 4,600 RPM, about 65, 70 pounds boost. So it was definitely making enough steam to keep the tire going, but from what I see, it needs more power before I let go of the brake to really wick the tire up to get it to maintain that burnout for, essentially as long as I need it to. So the last one of the night, it was our best one yet. Left on the foot brake at 50 pounds of boost, held it in second gear, went up to about 4,800 RPM, 4,850 RPM, nice RPM, and I believe that it would have kept spinning beyond that. But when you're doing a burnout, you think you're way further than what you really are, because once it starts moving, it feels like you're too far. So you really, if you're trying to go far with it, you have to take it like way beyond what you think is reasonable, because you're not as far down as you think you are. I do believe that it would have continued to keep spinning had I let out, but from what I've seen there, it does need more wheel speed after it wicks up. So my next time that I go out with it, I'm going to continue the same procedure. I'm going to leave on about 50 pounds of boost on the foot brake in second gear. immediately shift to third gear as soon as it wicks up on the wheel speed. And the reason for that is that will make the wheel speed a lot more. So when you go from 139 to 1-to-1 ratio, the wheels are going to spin a lot faster. So we need to start in second because this thing's a mutt and it doesn't have any horsepower and it needs to get the tire wicked up, but then we need to shift immediately into third so we can keep the tire wicked up, so then we can essentially back off some power or some throttle input at least if need be, and be able to do a nice consistent burnout. At the track, conditions are going to be slightly different. We are burning out in glue. Glue is very slick on, when you're sitting in it, but as you start to spin the tire and get the tire hot, that tire gets sticky quick. So it's harder to maintain the burnout as you drive out of the puddle. As to where at the racetrack, when we just drive through rubber, when we just drive through water, yes, we will be on a rubber surface, but we're just going to drive through water, and water doesn't necessarily enhance the tire's performance as it's spinning. So I believe that if it's working decent on bare, bad asphalt with glue, that it will work the same, if not marginally better, as far as, wheel speed goes on the actual racetrack with water and rubber down. So that's pretty much where we're at with it. The next time I go out, I might turn a nitrous kit on off the foot brake just to give it a little bit more power. But probably for the very first one, I won't. I'll probably just let it wick up and shift it immediately into third, and then see where we're at with the burnout there. So it's looking like this video is going to drop on Monday. The weather's supposed to be really good for this weekend, so I'm going to plan on finding a place to test, hopefully locally Friday, if not Saturday, and we are going to work a little bit more on burnout, but we're also going to make passes too. I know that this is probably getting painful to watch at this point because we're into the middle of September and we haven't had a full A to B pass yet with a decent time slip, but this is what it takes. If this is the stuff that you have to go through, you have to figure out how to, you got to go through these struggles to get to that point where you're making those repeatable passes. You can go out there and sure, you could go out there and run a, spool it up, let go of the brake, let it do whatever it does, and hold it to the floor all the way to the 660 and get whatever time slip it is. And it might be fast or it might be slow, but more times than not, you're going to tear something up doing it that way. So I know it's not as fun to watch this incremental type way of going about it, but I promise you that once we get to the point where we're making those laps, we're going to make laps consistently and we're going to make fast laps. So just hang in there. Hopefully you'll learn something along the way. I'm learning along the way, so anything I learn, I share with you guys. So I'm hoping that you guys find this stuff helpful. Try to keep it as entertaining as I can in the meantime, and stick around, and we will be getting to where we're making laps in this thing really soon. So like always, appreciate it. Appreciate you watching. Catch you on the next one.